Hey James at Barber Creek Long Range Shooting School. Today I'm going to talk about rifle scopes. Let me get this out of the way. And the reason I'm going to do this video is because hunting season's here and a lot of guys are deciding what scope they're going to get for their hunting rifle. So the scope is going to be determined by how you hunt, how far you hunt, how heavy of a gun do you want to carry. So let's kind of break it down. Tube diameter, this is a 1-inch tube, 30 millimeter tube, 30 millimeter tube, 34 millimeter, and there's even 36, 35s and so on. But it's going to limit the amount of travel the scope has. Now, if you're a guy that doesn't dial your turret at all and you're using holdover reticles, really that's fine. And you're gonna be okay out to about 600 yards with a bullet drop compensating reticle. And the issue you're gonna run into is if you use it, like for instance here in Alabama, the bullet gets there so fast at 600 yards, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this up in Eagle Ballistics app. At 600 yards, a 6.5 Creedmoor gets to the target in 0.78 seconds. So that's pretty quick, so not a lot affects it. But as you start getting further than 600 yards, let's just do an 800-yard shot, you'll notice that the bullet's in the air for 1.1 seconds. So now the environmentals really start to matter. And that's going to be your temperature, your pressure, your humidity, which is minor, but it's there. Of course, wind always matters. And then angles and all that good stuff. So even spin drift and horizontal Coriolis is negligible, really under 600 yards because of flight time. So what I want to get back into though is if you're using a holdover reticle that's got stadia lines for yards, you're going to be okay at 600 yards, right? But if you try to take it out west where you're at a different station pressure in the air center, you're going to start missing everything high even at 600 yards. So you got to be careful. And oh, by the way, not even including angle shots, which is going to change all your data. But that's not what this video is about. So 1-inch tubes have been around a very long time. This is an old Israeli sniper scope called the Nimrod. It was on a Galil. And it has maybe 40 minutes. Okay. Now, the problem with a 40-minute scope or a 1-inch tube is you're going to run out of dial-ups. So once I mount this on a rifle, even with a 20 MOA rail with a 40-minute scope, in other words, 1-inch tube, I might be lucky if I've even got 20 minutes left, which I probably don't, which means you're going to be very limited to how far you can shoot. For instance, you can see at 800 yards, we're at 18.98 minutes. That's about as far as you're going to get out to, all right? So be careful about 1-inch tubes. 1-inch tubes are really not in the long range game, okay? So a 30 millimeter tube in general gives you between 80 and 100 minutes of travel. Again, what the manufacturers aren't telling you is, yeah, this scope has 100 minutes in it, but you will end up with 66 usable, all right? Now, realistically, let's plug this in. I don't like to guess anything. 1,400 yards is about 52 minutes, all right? So you're going to be okay for hunting. So yes, a 30 millimeter tube is absolutely perfect for long range hunting. Most folks are not shooting anything at 1,400 yards, so it gives you plenty of travel. Now, the 34 millimeters, like we use on the school guns, these are, I'll speak English, these come with like 47 mils or like 160 minutes. Once you zero the gun, I literally have about 125 minutes left usable. This is awesome. And I love these scopes for really, really long range shots, 2,000 yards and so on. But let's bring the other factor in. This 1-inch tube is super light, right? I'm talking, this scope weighs about 24 ounces. This 30 millimeter is weighing in at about 28 or 29 ounces. This one from Track, same thing, 28, 29 ounces. 34 millimeters, you're now into 36 ounces. So remember, the larger the tube diameter gives you a lot of travel. That erector tube, that gold bar that holds the crosshairs in there, is going to move as you dial this turret up and down. You're moving the erector tube or the crosshairs. That allows you to shoot out to long range. The larger the tube, the more travel. The larger the tube, the more weight. So you got a pretty heavy piece of equipment on top of your rifle. So if you're not going to carry the rifle around like the school guns, then yeah, you can get away with a 8-9 pound rifle. If you are going to climb the mountains and hunt, you might want to look at the 30 millimeter tubes. This is that really nice Track 2.5 by 15. This is that Reticle, which is a, I don't want to lie, 3x18, and they're fairly light. Of course, you're not going to use the Nimrod. The Swarovski Z5 Plus is right at about 21 ounces. Be warned, the Z5 Plus has really good glass. It's super lightweight, but when you put the zero stop on, you end up with 40 minutes. Again, reasonable hunting distance, 1,100 yards. You're probably sitting at about 1,200 yard max with the Swarovski Z5 Plus with the Creedmoor. Every caliber is different. So let me kind of hit that up again. Tube diameter is how much travel. Yes, it does compensate for some amount of light coming in, but most of that is glass and the objective lens. The larger the objective lens, the more light and the better the glass. We all know Swarovski's got the best glass, but these are really good shot glass from Japan, and these are excellent in attract. Reticle has excellent Japanese glass. The Night Force has excellent Japanese glass. This is actually European glass. You're not going to get one of these. These things are really, really old, 60s. So again, let me kind of back up. Choose the scope based on how you hunt. If you're not dialing, you can get a Holdover reticle. If you're going to dial, then of course you're going to want a scope that has plenty of travel in it based on how far you plan on hunting and how heavy you want your gun. Crosshairs, you got stadia lines left and right. You've got to have stadia lines left and right for wind holds. Even under 600 yards, the wind matters. And I'll show you. If we're shooting only let's do 500 yards, and let's just say that we have a 10-mile-an-hour wind. Well, you can see that we're being pushed left 3 minutes. That's like 15 inches at 500 yards. So wind matters at all distances, all right? A lot of scopes like Night Force and some of the other ones, and I'm not picking on Night Force, they're a great scope, they just have hash marks and then all of a sudden a 5-minute or a 10-minute mark. So you really, and most of them don't even have a 5-minute mark. You really got to search for the number you need to hold. So I'm not a fan of stadia lines with no numbers. That's why I designed a reticle for track that has a physical number every 2 minutes, and it has half minutes on top. And I know Night Force finally came out with something that's a little bit similar and a little bit better. A lot of the other scope companies haven't got that yet. You guys really need to take a look at it. Last thing is, if you hunt out of a blind a lot, turret numbers are tiny, especially when you're hunting out of a blind. Now I'm going to hold this here so you can see it. Remember, if it's light outside and dark in a blind, you're going to have a heck of a time seeing these small numbers, where at least Track listened to me and they made the numbers huge for us older fellers, right? Look at this, this one, yeah, good luck with that. All right, the other thing is the actual turrets that are yardage turrets. This has a yardage turret. I don't know if you can see it. But basically the way it works, it helps if I'm on the elevation instead of the windage. The way this actually works is as you dial it to 400 yards, you dial number 4, 600 yards, number 6, 300 yards. I'm doing this backwards, so I don't even know what I'm on. So bottom line is you dial it to the physical number of yards you're shooting, and you can see they get larger as you go out. These are called bullet drop compensating turrets or yardage turrets. In theory, they're going to work. Gunworks has a really good system where their rangefinder will recreate a new yardage shoot to. So for instance, they burn the turret for temperature, pressure, humidity, velocity, ballistic coefficient, and as long as nothing on your gun changes and the temperature and pressure changes, it will give you a new shoot to. And that's what's great about the Reticle rangefinders, is they actually give you a new yardage shoot to. The downside is if the velocity changes on your barrel, which it's going to, then that turret now has a problem. Or if the BC changes, then that turret has a problem. But as long as everything stays the same, then you're going to be okay. All right? So again, 30 millimeters are perfect for long range hunting rifles, and they're pretty lightweight. 34s are going to be for your guys that are going to shoot at extreme ranges, and 1-inch tubes, well, we don't even use 1-inch tubes. This is the only one I own, and it's because it came off of my FN fall, all right? And bottom line is, you're not going to use a 1-inch tube for long range. A lot of companies like Swarovski and Zeiss and all those, they still make those 1-inch tubes, and you now know why you can't get past 700 yards. You just don't have enough minutes in it, all right? So hopefully this helps. Choose the scope based on how you hunt. Choose the scope based on how much weight you want your rifle to weigh with scope. and then make that decision based on crosshairs and turret numbers. Can you see the turret numbers when you're hunting, or do you got to pull out a flashlight and a magnifier? All right. So guys, remember, there's a lot of scopes out there, a lot of companies, and I'm not saying one's better than the other. What I'm just saying is look at what's on the scope, look at the crosshairs, look at the weight, look at the tube diameter, how much travel it's got, usable travel, and then just think of it this way. You generally lose about 30 minutes when you mount a scope to a rifle. So whatever the manufacturer tells you, take off 30 minutes, and that's a generalization, all right? Hopefully this helps. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.